Welcome to Fine Tuning with Drew Taylor, your one-stop shop when it comes to animation news and commentary. I'm Drew's co-host, entertainment writer Jim Hill. He and I are recording this show on Wednesday, March 18th, 2020. And face it, folks, a lot has changed since Drew and I last recorded. Quick question, Drew, how are you, Katie, and Nova holding up?
We're good. We haven't killed each other yet. You know, there's a lot of puzzling going on, a lot of online Mario Kart playing going on. But it's a very weird situation in LA.
Well, that's it.
To have no plans.
No, that's it exactly. And more to the point, the whole notion of sheltering in place or social distancing in LA. I mean, Nancy and I were well ahead of the trend. We've been social distancing since, the early 2000s. But that's when you live at the end of a dirt road in the woods of New Hampshire. But,
right.
I've been chatting with my daughter. She's been talking about it's very different out there right now. And
it's also been like raining heavily in LA. It's sort of been very apocalyptic.
Yeah. And I guess to kind of understand how this impacts what we talk about on this podcast, animation and the like, I guess that we have to sort of go through the timeline where, in a lot of ways, the domino that started a lot of things falling. Wednesday, March 11th, when Governor Newsom issued that order about all non-essential gatherings of more than 250 people should be canceled. And
that's also the day when the animation studios started sending people home.
Yeah.
DreamWorks, I think, started working remotely. And you remember I was supposed to have that signing last weekend for The Art of Onward, and Pixar wouldn't allow its animators to come down. Rightfully so. But so Pixar was already working remotely by then as well.
Yeah. And
so,
but it's been fascinating for me to watch, for example, I mean, for weeks now, people have been sort of looking at, the live action reboot of Mulan, which didn't it have its premiere last week in home?
Yes. Yeah, I didn't go because I was like, I'll go next week. Well, turns out, Jim, next week it ain't happening. So, yeah.
And that's honestly not a surprise because given the situation in China where, 7,000 theaters were closed. And if you think about the time, the money, the effort that was put into, the live action reboot of Mulan to make it the sort of movie that would really play in China and really do huge box office. And the fact that we can't open this movie there. More to the point, you and I have talked about it. We can't really open it in the States because then it'll get pirated and it'll go to China and no one will pay to see it. So the fact that Disney finally on Thursday, March 12th announced it was postponing the release. And then in quick order, we saw the live action reboot of The Little Mermaid, which was just 9 days away from beginning to shoot at Pinewood, UK. That announced it was postponing production on March 13th. And then on March 14th, you saw, the folks at the exhibitors actually try to sort of keep up and running. So we had AMC and Regal Theaters announce that they'd be reducing the capacity of the theaters by 50%, and with the idea that people who then went to the movies could, on their own, practice social distancing. I was trying to honor Drew because I had not seen Onward yet. So this past Monday, we went to our local Cinemagic the day before it closed. And we went and saw Onward, which, by the way, is a wonderful film. But I have to admit, Drew, I was kind of surprised by how weirdly intimate it is at times. I mean, for a lot of this thing, it's just Ian and Barley and their dad in the van. I guess I hadn't thought about that going in because there were all these scenes of magic and battles and that sort of thing. And the fact that it really is almost a chamber piece a lot of the time.
Yeah. I think anytime they got too crazy, which you'll see all the crazy stuff in the Art of book, they realized that it took away from the story. So they had to kind of scale it back. But I think it's a beautiful looking movie and just so emotional.
Absolutely. And in fact, it lands so beautifully that folks, when you actually get the chance to see Onward, if you didn't get out this past weekend, where it was number 2 at the box office, but that was largely because by Sunday, the Center of Disease Control was telling, basically saying, do not attend events where there are more than 50 people in attendance for the next 8 weeks. And
then that went up to 10 people.
Yeah, I think that was Monday that happened. And I was talking with some folks in the industry just yesterday, trying to get a handle on, given again that, we were watching theaters all over the country close. And at this point, I think the industry is running at 20% capacity. And what they were talking about was, for example, I still believe that story of the Christian music star Jeremy Camp. That was number 1 at the box office, largely because churches and Christian groups had bought blocks of tickets in advance. And from, I guess, the anecdotal evidence, a lot of them didn't actually go to the theaters, but they had sold the tickets anyway, so they counted them.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. So,
well, that was the lowest. What was it? The lowest weekend in 20 years at the domestic box office, or something. It's just crazy.
You'll love this, though, Drew. So Nancy and I go to see this screening of Onward because the 12 noon performance on Monday. Just checked the theater and it's closed. But the interesting thing is they're selling tickets now for Trolls World Tour. With how they front load the Thursday night before the Friday opening. So
right.
I have an option of buying tickets to the 5, the 7:10, or the 9:20. But again, that's assuming that this actually does make it into theaters. And given what Universal just announced on the 16th, you got to wonder why I'd bother. I mean, what did you think of Universal's announcement about effectively streaming Trolls World Tour on the 10th?
I mean, it's crazy because it effectively breaks a distribution model that the theaters have been dead set against not breaking for the last, 5 years, really, seriously. So I think it's a crazy move, but I think it's also the right move. I can't quite get a handle on whether it's going to be rental or sale. It seems like there's a little confusion around that.
Well, the language that I've come across says that the films will be available for a 48-hour rental period at a suggested retail price of $19.99.
I wonder if they're going to change that.
Well,
because, this is how quickly things are moving. But in the few days since they announced the Trolls World Tour, as well as some other current Universal theatrical movies like Invisible Man and The Hunt and Emma are going to be on, they've announced that Birds of Prey is coming, as well as Bloodshot, the Vin Diesel science fiction sort of action superhero thing. And those two have been explicitly for sale. So I wonder if Universal is just going to have to follow suit. I think $20 is a fair price to buy something. I'm not sure if it's for rental, although I did love Trolls and would suggest everybody see it however they can.
Do you remember?
I don't know.
Remember, wasn't it, 3 or 4 years ago when they were floating that idea of what?
Oh, yes. What was that called? It was called like the screening room or something. And like Spielberg and Christopher Nolan and some other people were involved in that, where it was like $50.
That's it exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And in fact, I forget who I was talking with about this. Again, I'm old. I remember when, for example, Paramount got into a VHS and, they were doing things like they were selling the original Star Trek The Motion Picture for $79.99, and they only moved so many units, so they then dropped the price to $39.99, and they moved a lot more units. But then they found that sweet spot really was $19.95. That people thought that that's a fair amount of money for a movie to bring home. So, it just fascinates me that we're at that same price point now.
Well, it was also I was looking up. That it took E.T. 6 years to arrive on VHS. So this is much different. Yeah. It's a different world.
I don't know, totally. Well, speaking of different world, as of Monday of this week, March 17th, AMC closed all of its locations in North America. But again, this is the interesting thing, for 6 to 12 weeks. Now, the 6-week point is, they'd be back open by Monday, April 27th. If we're pushing this out to 12 weeks, That's Monday, June 8th. And, if we're talking strictly animation, at 12 weeks, that means Scoob and SpongeBob, Sponge on the Run, are in that position of, well, what do we do? Do we, we push these out through home distribution? But the interesting thing is, at that point, though, the two animated features that are most likely safe, we've got Pixar's Soul, which is supposed to arrive in theaters June 19th, and then Minions, The Rise of Gru. But then you have to factor in what President Trump in a White House briefing just yesterday said, that it could take as long as July or August of this year to finally get the coronavirus outbreak in the U.S. under control.
Or potentially longer.
Yeah.
I mean, I think you're very optimistic about saying those two are safe.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we've never seen anything like this before.
No, and but at the same time, it's been interesting to watch Disney. Again, for example, Friday of last week, they announced that Frozen 2 was going to show up on Disney Plus 3 months early on Sunday, the 16th.
Yeah.
And to be completely fair here, the digital HD version of Frozen became available for download and purchase back on February 11th. The Blu-ray hit store shelves 3.5 weeks ago. And with all of us being told to shelter in place, it's not like a lot of the copies of Frozen 2 that are in the retail channels are going to sell. So, in a weird sort of way, it makes sense that Frozen 2 got moved over to Disney Plus because, of course, you have to have a subscription to Disney Plus to actually watch this movie. So, and that's at least $6.99 a month. On the other hand...
And then they ended up bumping it up an extra day. Did you see that? It was supposed to be out on Sunday, and then it was like Saturday. It was like, oh, it's there.
Wow.
Go ahead. Go enjoy. Yeah.
I didn't notice that.
Yeah.
On the other hand, Rise of Skywalker, its digital HD version was supposed to go on sale today when recording, the Tuesday, but that also became available for purchase on Sundays. But again, that's not Disney Plus. That's Walt Disney Studios Home Entertainment, the typical thing they do with the digital HD release. But same thing. I mean, I got my review copy of the Blu-ray of Star Wars Rise of the Resistance the other day. But how many of them are on store shelves that people can't necessarily get to now or in 2 weeks' time? So
watch that documentary, Jim. It's good.
Again, I'm not going anywhere, so yes, I'll definitely take a look at that. Okay, so speaking of trapped at home, again, we all want to fly off the Neverland. You did see that Disney has cast 2 young kids to play the title characters in Peter Pan and Wendy, which I guess is the next live-action reboot of a Disney animated film.
Yes, I did see that. I can't wait for this one.
Okay.
I love David Lowery.
Well, I'm so glad you said that because I really enjoyed his reimagining of Pete's Dragon, the one that got released to theaters back in August of 2016. And in a lot of ways, this is a reunion of the Pete's Dragon team because David's directing, but he also, just as he did with Pete's Dragon, he's co-writing the script for Peter Pan and Wendy with Toby Halbrooks. Is that right?
Yep.
And then Jim Whittaker, who also produced Pete's Dragon, the reboot, is coming back and tackling the same assignment with Peter Pan and Wendy. But at the same time, given everything that's going on with push release dates and shutting down of production and that sort of thing, realistically, 2022, if that, right?
Who knows? I mean, it probably had a release date of 2022 to begin with. So, I mean, I feel really bad for David, though, because his new movie, The Green Knight, was supposed to debut at South by Southwest, and South by Southwest was canceled. So this thing is really screwing with David Lowery.
That's right. Oy. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I know last week we talked a little bit about DuckTales when season 3 is coming back, but the interesting thing is that they've released the titles of the episodes that are coming out. So April 4th, we've got, of course, that hour-long special kickoff event. So that's Challenge of the Senior, Junior Woodchucks and Quack Pack. But the one that really intrigues me, Drew, is the next weekend, so the one that drops on Saturday, April 11th. And that's Double O Duck and You Only Crash Twice. So That's reaching.
Quack Pack didn't intrigue you, Jim?
I have kind of a blind spot for Quack Pack. It just. I have no idea what show you're talking about. Teenage Huey,
Yes.
Dewey, and Louie. I'm sorry, does not compute. On the other hand, Double O Duck. I mean, that is the infamous early iteration of Darkwing Duck before the Broccoli family came down on Disney like a pack of wolves, and it's like no, Double O is ours. Go find something else.
But there was an episode of DuckTales called Double O Duck.
Was it really?
Yeah, the 48th episode of the original series that aired on November 25th, 1987.
Okay. Now I have something to go to YouTube to watch tonight.
Yeah. Well, they're all on, I think they're all on Disney Plus. So
even better.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well.
So maybe it's a sequel to that episode? I don't know, Jim. I'm just throwing out ideas here.
Let's see. And as long as we're piling up somewhat depressing news here, again, what with, various theater chains closing and as well as the Walt Disney Family Museum, D23 decided to pull the plug on its A Goofy Movie 25 on the Open Road Show, the event. Did you hear about these? They were going to...
No, I didn't.
I want to say there are 4 or 5 different stops they were going to make around the country. We're going to start on April 5th on the lot in Burbank. And what was cool about this was that it wasn't just showing the movie. It was Bill Farmer there. In fact, Bill was going to make appearances at every stop on the tour, talking about making the movie. And then, again, I know this is what would genuinely appeal to you, Drew. All event attendees were going to get a copy of the map that Goofy had crammed into the glove compartment.
Oh, I love that.
But better, it came with a collectible set of 3 pins. So you got one for Destiny Lake, which featured Bigfoot. You got one for Powerline's stop in L.A. on his tour. And then the one for Lester's Possum Park. And, the thing is, this event was supposed to happen on April 5th, the kickoff. So you and I both know there's a warehouse somewhere, filled with pins that were supposed to go out to folks who went to see this in San Francisco and people who saw it in Orlando and then up in Boston. Speaking of San Francisco, I would be remiss if I didn't mention that because of the whole shelter-in-place thing that's going on up there, the Cartoon Art Museum is closed through April 7th. And if it reopens, folks, you have to go. They have a wonderful show that pays tribute to Bill Watterson's Calvin and Hobbes. It's all of these different artists doing their take on those characters. And while we're talking about canceled screenings, I think we talked previously about the Steven Universe sing-along screenings that Fathom was going to stage on Monday, March 23rd. And obviously, again, with theaters shut down till the beginning of April, that's not happening. And then there's things like Emerald City Comic Con, which was supposed to have happened at the Washington State Convention Center this past weekend, March 12th through the 15th. It's now been rescheduled for August 21st to the 23rd. But here's the thing. There's a lot of artists that prepped material to sell at that show that now have to figure out how to stay afloat till August. I bring this up, folks, because if you go over to Twitter and you use the hashtag, and let me get this right, ECC Online, all one word, there you're going to be able to see a lot of the artwork that people had prepped for the show. And if you see a piece that you'd like, if you could do us a favor, if you could maybe buy 1 or 2 of those pieces. Again, you're trapped at home and you're bored. Again, there's this wonderful book called The Art of Onward that, you could... Amazon's...
Never heard of it, Jim. Never heard of it.
And as I understand it, Drew, I'm sure you've seen the stories that Amazon is now cutting back to essential household items. So it's, food, it's cleaning supplies, it's toilet paper, and oddly enough, also The Art of Onward. So, just...
Thank God.
Again, they've got their priorities right.
Yeah.
Okay, given that we're talking about the most recent Pixar film, I guess we should also talk about the new trailer for Soul that just dropped.
Yes, let's do it.
Okay, give us a sec and we'll get right to that.
You don't technically need this car. You say that out loud to yourself. You say, I have no space. You say, I'm just looking. Then you click. Then you zoom in on photo number 87 and whisper, "Oh no." Then you text a friend, the one who always enables you. You say to yourself, "This is the last one," knowing it is not. You don't need this car. But maybe, just maybe, this car needs you. Bring a trailer. It's never just a car.
We all love a legendary comeback, and Degree Original Cool Rush is back and better than ever. Cool Rush isn't just a scent, it's a movement, a fan favorite that delivers bold, fresh vibes and all-day sweat protection. Whether you're heading to the gym, the office, or just trying to stay fresh on a long day, Cool Rush has your back. So if you haven't tried it yet, head to your local Walmart or Target and grab Degree Cool Rush, the fan favorite scent from the world's #1 antiperspirant brand.
All right. Now, we had already had a teaser trailer for Soul. And in that one, we got to meet Joe Gardner, the middle school music teacher, dreamed of being a jazz pianist. And we also got to meet 22, the soul that hadn't quite made it to Earth yet. But again, that was just sort of teasery stuff. But this most recent trailer, I think, gives us a better sense of the world and the stakes and that sort of thing. What did you think, Drew?
I loved this trailer. I thought it was really, really well done. It definitely does give you a much better look at the great before, where the souls get their personalities and, all of that. It might have shown a little bit too much, but I like that they are keeping you on the hook, too. I mean, the big reveal in the trailer is that Joe is still alive, and so they're going to try to go back. But, the design work is amazing. You and I, before the show, were talking about the kind of squiggly number counters that look like UPI, 2D animation. Yeah.
I love that. And, in a weird sort of way, it's that Pete Docter chose to do this as kind of, face it, Inside Out did a wonderful job of sort of making real a very abstract concept. This almost seems like he's doubling down. I mean, I love the concept of the great before rather than the great beyond.
Right.
And, very, very much looking forward to this, though. But as long as we're talking about things with incredibly trippy art direction, and I want to stress here that the trailer for The Midnight Gospel also just dropped.
Not for kids.
Not for kids. But again, I have to admit, I really like what I see with this thing. And this is your pal Pendleton Ward again.
Yes,
the guy who brought us Adventure Time, and Duncan Trussell. So he's the voice of the podcaster Clancy. Is that right?
I think it's based on his podcast. I don't think I've ever heard it before, but we should really be asking Alice because she is the podcast
This
queen.
is true. Tonight when we chat, I'll ask her about, I guess it's called the Duncan Trussell Family Hour.
Yes.
Which, given the content of the trailer, it's just sort of like, wow, that's a really interesting family you got there. But anyway, to get back to Soul. So we've got Jamie Foxx as the voice of Joe, Tina Fey as the voice of 22. I've been getting some questions lately, Drew, and again, I guess it's kind of intriguing. The number of folks are asking if Disney legend Floyd Norman was the inspiration for Joe Gardner, and it's like, I've made a few polite inquiries, and the pushback is like, no, there were a lot of great jazz musicians that Joe is inspired by, but at the same time, he's supposed to be a middle school English teacher. So this is the first Pixar film with, well, I don't know if you can say predominantly African-American cast, because so much of this is set in the great before,
right,
where we're all bright yellow and fuzzy.
Right. But Angela Bassett, Daveed Diggs, Felicia Rashad, Questlove, your favorite late night drummer, is in it as well.
Yes.
So, it's a lot of good people.
Well, again, it's still very, very much looking forward to this one. But again, they have to allow us back into theaters to see this. I get the sense this is one of those movies you want to see on a big screen. Oh, and before we step away from talking about Floyd Norman, the 2020 edition of the Turner Classic Movie Festival, which was supposed to be held on April 16th through the 19th, has been canceled. And this kind of breaks my heart because they were supposed to honor Floyd at this year's event. He was going to be hosting screenings of two of the Disney classics that he worked on, 1963's Sword in the Stone and 1967's The Jungle Book. I'm really, really hoping that this particular tribute gets rescheduled.
He's the best.
He is. No, like Bill Farmer, lots and lots and lots of great stories.
Yes, I would see him eating lunch. He was at my campus when I was at Disney.
Oh.
Because he was at Consumer Products, so
that's right.
I would often ask him questions at lunch about things, and it was very nice. Yeah.
I wonder what became of all those giant Disney. What was the
Disney Infinity?
Disney Infinity figures. I wonder if
I don't know.
Jeez. Okay.
I'll bring one home for you, Jim, if I hear about it.
Yeah,
Nancy would love it.
Of course, yes. That's something else to drape extras equipment on. Okay. Speaking of animation pioneers and being honored and that sort of thing, did you see that story today about Ed Catmull and Pat Hanrahan won the computer industry's prestigious Turing Prize?
Yes.
Their contributions to 3D graphics and CG filmmaking. And now, I don't need to explain to the folks who Ed Catmull is, but had you heard of Pat Hanrahan prior to this award, Drew? Or
I am not sure. He might have been in the Pixar. What was the Pixar Story documentary or Pixar Touch or something? But
okay, yeah, that's Leslie Iwerks.
Yes.
Yeah, I have to circle back on that, but. Well, it turns out he was a founding employee of Pixar Animation from 1986 to 1989. He was part of the RenderMan design team, specifically dealing with the interface and the shading language. And then he was involved in Pixar productions like Tin Toy in 1988 and the original Toy Story, which was released in theaters in 1995. But interestingly enough, in 1989, he kind of stepped away from Pixar and joined the faculty of Princeton University. And then in 1995, he went to Stanford. So that's the interesting thing. He helped get it off the ground, but then went back to the academic world, which, again, remember, is where Ed Catmull actually came out of. I don't know why, but this kind of reminds me of the story of Tom Lehrer. Do you know the
No.
Yeah. He, had a wonderful career going as satirical songwriter, who wrote wonderful songs like Poisoning Pigeons in the Park. And So Long Mom.
He'd probably write a great song about the cat's buttholes, too.
There we go. Yes. If there's somebody who's going to do that, But what eventually happened is that a dean sat him down at one point and said, look, you obviously have a career going with this comic songwriting. But, you got to decide. Are you going to be a teacher or are you going to be working nightclubs the rest of your life? And he decided to stick with teaching, though. Every so often, for example, I guess for the first season of The Electric Company, he wrote the Silent E song. Do you remember that?
No, I don't remember that.
Who can turn a man into a mane? Who can turn a can into a cane? Very clever stuff. But, just he opted to stick with education. So anyway, back to the Turing Award. So there's $1 million prize associated with this. It's issued by the Association of Computer Machining. And supposedly they will award the Turing Award to these guys at their annual banquet in June in San Francisco. So why do I think that's not going to happen either? So...
Well, also, I want to say maybe Catmull can give the whole $1 million to Hanrahan. I'm just going to say, I think Catmull's set for retirement. I think he's good. I don't know. That's just me.
Okay. And, of course, the film that helped found his fortune was the original Toy Story. And by the way, worth noting, folks, March 25th is the 24th anniversary of John Lasseter receiving a Special Achievement Award. That's his 68th Academy Awards for his role in the creation of and production of Toy Story, which, by the way, not that animation studio's first Oscar. That came back in March of 1989 at the 61st Academy Awards. That's when Pixar took home Best Animated Short Film for Tin Toy. And supposedly it was at that Academy Award that Katzenberg ran into Lasseter and began his pursuit of, initially it was come back to Disney, direct films. And, he was like, no, I got this good thing with Pixar. And eventually they cut the deal. So Pixar was going to do 3 films for Disney. And they signed a contract, or Ed Catmull signs a contract with Disney in July of 1991. And some 4+ years later, in November of 1995, we finally got Toy Story. Anyway, have you ever seen this footage from John Lasseter at the Academy Awards when he won for Toy Story?
I mean, I remember watching it in 95 or whenever it was, but I haven't looked at it since. Mm-hmm. Is there something to behold?
What's kind of interesting is this is the night that Whoopi Goldberg is hosting the Academy Awards. In fact, a lot of Disney fans remember this because she made the joke, the fart joke to the effect of, wait till you see the color of my wind, which was appropriate because this was the night that Pocahontas took home not only Best Song for Colors, The Colors of the Wind, also took home Best Score that year. But the interesting thing is the film it was up against was Toy Story. And, it beat out Friend Like Me. And, here we are some 25 years later. And when's the last time you heard Colors of the Wind? Whereas you've got a Friend Like Me, you can't escape. It's just out there.
No.
But anyway, it was Robin Williams who actually wound up introducing John Lasseter. And it's not going to surprise you, Drew, that Robin went as blue as he could. Was talking about in their movie Toy Story, we're an old-fashioned cowboy doll named Woody. And it's like, Robin and aside, what? I had a Woody as a child. What a fun it was to play with in the morning. And
God.
But again, that's Robin. And then, so John starts his speech and he comes on stage carrying the dolls for Buzz Lightyear and Woody. And, sets them down on the table in front of the special Academy Award. And, he says, thank you, Robin. He said, I didn't bring these guys. They hired their own limo. It was a real small one. Malibu Ken was the driver. And which just made me think that, well, first of all, the Barbie bit that got cut from the original Toy Story, remember, what was it? She was supposed to come zooming into the room in her pink sports car, but with sunglasses and a leather jacket, and basically talk like Arnold Schwarzenegger in The Terminator. It's like, come with me if you want to live. And Mattel balked, not necessarily because of the whole Terminator gag, but they had this belief then that every little girl decided what Barbie sounded like, and they didn't want to establish anything. And of course, that goes right out the window with Toy Story 2. Jodie Foster, not Jodie Foster,
Jodie Benson.
Jodie Benson, yes.
Yeah, I think that was a Joss Whedon gag, I believe, from when he worked on the script. Yeah,
makes perfect sense. Okay, and then of course, by the time we get to Toy Story 3 in 2010, we do get Ken, voiced by Michael Keaton. But anyway, John goes on to say that, first of all, he wants to thank the Academy for their longtime support of student filmmakers and of short films, because in a weird sort of way, that's what put a lot of the team at Pixar on the map. I want to say Pete Docter took home a Student Academy Award, and I think Andrew Stanton did. And that's actually the other thing that's really kind of cool about what John does on stage is that he flat out says that even though it's the first computer animated film, computers alone did not create Toy Story. A group of very talented people did, among them. And now he turns to Robin and says, okay, time me. And proceeds to bullet train out all of these names: Andrew Stanton, Pete Docter, Joe Ramp, Ralph Guggenheim, Bonnie Arnold, Bill Reeves, Eben Osteby, Ralph Eggleston, Peter Schneider, Tom Schumacher, and Michael Eisner, because, of course, you want to say nice things about the people who cut the checks. And then, also mentions his loving wife, Nancy, and my lucky stars, my sons, Joey, Bennett, PJ, and Sam. And just sort of summed up with, it's because of these people, the sum of all these brilliant parts, that it's the reason that Toy Story carries a human spirit that shines even brighter than its computerized glow. And so he says, I thank the Academy, the Board of Governors, and all the audiences around the world for recognizing that it's light. Thank you. And then John turns and steps off stage and leaves not only the Academy Award, but Buzz and Woody. And this is, I think, why a lot of people remember this moment, because they then basically cut away to something that was shown in the monitors at the Shrine Auditorium. And it's Buzz and Woody now stand up on the podium next to the Oscar, and it's like, how do you like that? He forgot us again. And Buzz kind of freaks out because he looks at the Oscar and it's carrying a sword, and it's like, freeze, he's armed. Woody, grab the sword before he kills us. And it's like, Woody says to Buzz, if I take the sword, he'll be naked. And then there's a lot of dad humor that Woody at one point walks up to the Oscar and says, you wouldn't happen to have a cousin in Cleveland who's a bowling trophy, would you? And,
I do remember this. I remember this animated bit.
Yeah. And then Woody and Buzz begin to fight about who was the leading character. Buzz insisted, I carried the picture, so that makes you the supporting toy, Woody. And then Woody fires back as oh yeah, light snack. Buzz then snatches Woody's hat and then begins running around to the podium and is like, look at me, I'm Woody. Howdy, howdy, howdy. Where's my horse? We don't get to see your horse until Toy Story 2 in Bullseye in 1999. And then at this point, they do the someone's coming and do that thing that the Toy Story characters never do in the Disney theme parks. I don't care how many people say this happens, but the whole someone's coming and they collapse flat to the podium. But, Whoopi comes on stage and says, what a mess, that Lasseter's always forgetting his toys. And Whoopi wouldn't actually become a member of the Pixar family till June of 2010, which he voices Stretch the Octopus for Toy Story 3. But they then do a close-up of the Oscar statue, and it talks, and it's, he forgot me too. And it's Robin Williams voicing the Oscar, which, to my knowledge, that's the only time he voiced a character for something that Pixar produced. Can you think of anything, Drew?
Yeah, no. And it's interesting, too, because I don't know if you remember the lead up to that Academy Awards, but Pixar got into a little bit of trouble because you're not supposed to use the statue for your consideration ads. And there were these amazing ads with the toy soldiers carrying the Oscar.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And they got dinged for it. So it's really interesting that they actually got a chance to animate and mess around with the statue at the awards because they were given such flack in the run up to it. So
and the absolutely weirdest part of this is that immediately after this, Whoopi then introduces Randy Newman and Lyle Lovett, who then perform You've Got a Friend in Me. So basically, there's this 5 to 10 minute long chunk of the Academy Awards that is nothing but a promo piece for Pixar. I can't think of the last time the Academy Awards did something like this. I don't know. It's well worth seeking out if you want to go over to YouTube. And again, we're all trapped at home, looking for things to do. So, and it turns out there's a lot of these little bits that Pixar has done for the Academy Awards, with one of the more interesting ones. Did you ever see the piece that was done for the very first year? They gave an official Academy Award for Best Animated Feature.
Yes, where Mike and Sully and Shrek are in the audience.
Yes, along with Jimmy Neutron. And what's fascinating is they had to prepare. The people had to animate first the characters sitting in the audience acknowledging, introducing these characters. And then they had to basically animate 2 more pieces of animation. One is when they won the award, and then when they didn't win it. And that's actually what's really kind of cool about this piece of animation, because for the very first Academy Award for Best Animated Feature, Shrek took it home. And so they cut away to Mike and Sully from Monsters, Inc. sitting in the audience. And they do that gritted teeth smile and that phony applause, like, oh, we're so happy he won.
Yes, it's so funny. Yeah, it's really funny.
It makes me want to see what Shrek would have done if he lost. But
another award that doesn't seem to age very well.
Well,
when you think Shrek getting it over Monsters, Inc.
I get that. I do that. Yeah. But in a weird sort of way, I think what's taken away from Shrek over the years is if you actually watch the original Shrek all right, some of the animation doesn't hold up, but the story is still pretty solid. I think.
Oh, Jim, I rewatched almost every DreamWorks movie in the last few weeks. So I've watched all of the Shreks.
Okay.
Which was both a more pleasurable and a more torturous experience than I imagined.
Well, all right. Interesting question. If you were, face it, I'm not a big fan necessarily of Shrek 2 or Shrek 3, but the fourth one?
That one's interesting.
Yeah. I like what that one does. I wouldn't necessarily put it on a par with the first one, which I think is still the strongest. That's honestly something that frustrates me, that the sequels that take away from, what made the first film special. We've talked on recent shows about the original Ice Age from 2003, and that's actually a good movie. I mean, the animation doesn't necessarily hold up compared to today's, but it's still a good, solid story. But all of the Ice Age stuff that came after it, it's like a wave hitting the shore and pulling sand away. It's just...
I agree. I think DreamWorks did that a lot, too, and it had an animated show called Penguins of Madagascar. There were still Madagascar movies, and there was a movie called Penguins of Madagascar. It was too much.
Yeah. But, I want to say what's interesting about the Penguins of Madagascar animated series, the gentleman who did Kim Possible for Disney, I'm blanking their names, they decamped from Disney and went over there to work on that. Well, anyway, okay, so just today, there was some news about Mission Impossible 7? Is that the one that's...
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, first of all, I guess there was some news that broke that suggested that the production had moved from Venice to the UK and that they were beginning production again, but that proved to be wrong, right? Or...
Yeah, it looks like they were just testing some stunts, but, I mean, it was good to see Tom and... Rebecca Ferguson back in action doing crazy vehicular things.
Yeah.
I'll take whatever I can get at this point, Jim.
No. Now, speaking of which, we talked about your most recent Light the Fuse podcast, the John Kroll shows. Are those now all available?
Oh, John Knoll. Yeah, John Knoll is over now, and we're starting our Marianne, Brandon, and Mary Jo Markey episodes this Friday, which are really cool.
Okay.
And we're talking to Roger Guyette on Friday, actually, for the show. So he was the visual effects supervisor for 3. He just got done with a little movie called Rise of Skywalker. Aww. So I think our audiences will be happy about that.
Okay, well, killer. Well, talk seriously. The John Knoll shows are worth it alone for all the amazing 1901 stories. I mean, just it just kills me. Absolutely kills me. So.
We came so close, Jim. We came so close.
All right. So, but again, that they can find all this stuff at Light the Fuse, right? So
yes.
Okay.
Keep going.
Okay.
We don't have toilet paper, but we have a lot of great guests. So just keep that in mind.
Well, over on our side, we do have toilet paper, but again, we live in the woods, so just we won't talk about the bears. But as for podcasts, we've got Disney Dish with Len Testo. We've got Looking at Lucasfilm with Dan Z, who, by the way, did you hear about his book?
I did. I saw that on Twitter.
Yes. Yeah.
Good for him. I mean, usually I'm sending nothing but evil vibes his way, but I'll give him this one that I'm proud of him.
Yeah.
He co-wrote a book with Pablo and some other guy.
It's
called The Star Wars Book.
Yeah. No, coming out this October.
So, yeah.
So pre-order that one, folks. We also have Marvel Us Disney that I do with Aaron Adams, a gentleman who edits a lot of the podcasts here. We have I Want That with Michelle Valladolid, where we talk about Disney merch, which I guess we're mostly buying online now. And then, of course, Universal Joint. And when Dustin Fuse next talk, we're going to do the same sort of show we just did now, Drew. But, well, that's closed, and this closed, and that's closed. By the way, folks, Drew's Light the Fuse show, you've got a social media presence, right? Or
yeah, it's just Light the Fuse Pod.
Okay.
On all the social media channels.
Okay.
Yeah.
And here for the ones we do with the Jim Hill Media Podcast Network, you can find us on Twitter and Instagram as Jim Hill Media, and on Facebook as Jim Hill Media News. And also, folks, just a heads up, Drew and I know that a lot of you are trapped at home right now and are desperate to get out and experience new things, which is why we are in the process of prepping a brand new podcast one that's going to take you to all sorts of themed entertainment spots that have long since disappeared. We'll have more info about this show shortly, but trust me, folks, it's one that you're not going to want to miss. So
yes, we'll be taking you to all those places that you never knew existed in the first place, and probably would not have gone to while it was still in operation, but that you and I are very fascinated by.
That's right.
And I think listeners will be too.
Okay, so again, we'll be back with more info on that shortly. But till then, thanks for listening, and we'll be back soon.